All right, what's up, party people? Welcome to another episode of Behind the Counter 2.0. I'm Rich, and I'm here again with a new episode. I have not had caffeine for 8 days. Isn't that crazy? I cannot remember the last time in my adult life that I had not had caffeine for more than a day or two. The withdrawals sucked, but listen, after day 6, I rocked it. Day 7, today's day 8. I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm questioning myself, did I really need all that coffee to begin with? Anyway, guys, today we talked to DB Andry. DB Andry's a writer, great guy. We talk about a lot of his work. We talk about Resonant, Denizen, End After End, Morningstar, and we talk specifically about his new book, Crush Depth, out from Mad Cave very soon. So get your orders in. Great guy. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. DB Andry, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm not doing terrible. I'm very happy to have you back on. Our conversation last time was fantastic. And listen, you're a cool guy, so talk to me.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on again. I appreciate
Mhm,
you really talking about End After End last time. I mean, that was a book
mhm,
that we had delays and slipped under the
mhm.
radar. The second volume is actually available for order now. So if people like fell off or bought the first volume and like kind of it got delayed a couple of times. So if you're wondering where that second volume of End After End is, or if you want to go back and watch that video and then go buy the first and second volume will be in stores in March, and so you can order it right now from your comic book shops or pre-order from any like online book retailer. But yeah, it's great to be back. It's great to talk about comics. Let's do it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, End After End was the impetus for me to contact you in the first place. I love that book. And I think when we talked, there was 2 issues left, I want to say.
Yeah,
And then like I waited until the last issue came out so I can read the last 2. And
yeah,
listen, again, anybody listening to this, please pick up End After End. It's a fantastic book. But you're working on new stuff now, right?
absolutely. Yeah, since
Mhm,
End After End, that kind of I think coincided with Denizen, which was part of
mhm.
Nightfall double feature through Vault as well. And Denizen was our story, me and Tim Daniel and Chris Sheehan and Jason Wardy. Um, we had that story in the Nightfall double feature that came out through Vault that you can get as a trade right now. We did me and Tim with Matt Roberts did an issue of Creep Show, which is rad. I got an image and a
That's
Skybound
awesome.
credit, which is like a big feather in the old cap.
Yeah.
And I've known Matt Roberts, pretty much, for like at least 10 years
Mhm,
and wanted to work with him forever. So that was like a really nice, it was a fun project to work on. I just love seeing his art come in, and me and Tim had a lot of fun coming up with various pitches
mhm,
for that. It's only a 10-page story in each issue. There's 2 10-page
yeah.
stories. So we were in volume 2. So that's available in trade right now too. You can
Mhm.
pick that up. And they just came out with a hardcover, which looks really nice. I just got my comp in the
That's
mail, and it's
awesome.
pretty rad to have a hardcover on the shelf. And then me and Tim Daniel, my co-writer, started working with uh Mad Cave, and
Yeah.
you just had Mark London, who's like the nicest, like legit, like when you watch the video and you're like, is he really like that? Yeah, that dude's really
Super
like that.
nice.
Super
Yeah.
nice, super loves comics.
Yeah.
He's super supportive of indie comics, which
Yep.
is, I mean, and you guys talked a lot about all their licensed properties. They got a ton of those,
Yeah.
but he has not stopped putting out indie comics,
Yeah.
like, and when he started doing the license stuff, he started doing, because it was all Mad Cave for I think the first 5 years was pretty much all his stuff.
Yeah.
Everything he wrote, they owned it, and then they moved into creator own, and
Yeah.
that's when we started working with them. And they have just a terrific creator own program. Our editor James Emmett is amazing. So we did one book there called Morning Star with Marco Finnegan, and of course my boy Jason Wardy again,
Yeah.
because I bring him along for colors whenever I can.
Uh-huh.
And that was a 5 issue series. It was set in like the 1950s,
Mhm.
1940s, and Marco's art is really kind of a classic style that it looks like it could be from that time period.
Yeah.
And so Jason like matched his
Very, very Joe
colors.
Kubert. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Wordy matched his colors to the time. So
Mhm.
there's some pages that look like they're offset, they missed the print,
Mhm.
and like you can see like the like smudges on the page and stuff like that. Like the coloring wasn't
Yeah.
super clean. It's amazing. It's like an Amblin style family horror set in the Montana woods, and it was a really fun first experience with Mad Cave. And then our next book is coming out in March
Yeah.
called Crush Depth, and that's like a kind of a body horror submarine story. It's kind of like The
Mhm.
Thing and Annihilation on a submarine set in the future. So it's pretty rad. It's Alex Sanchez is doing the art, and he's just destroying the monster designs and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you get to the that, it's kind of a slow burn in the first couple of issues, and then you really get into like the monster and the grossness, and like, yeah, it's really fun. It's all the stuff I'm scared of. So I put everything I was scared of in one book.
You were kind enough to send me the first couple issues, and I read them, and I was immediately hooked after that first issue. So I'm like, it's tough to do like a sea adventure, and I
Yeah.
feel like it's also tough to do like a body horror thing, and you combine both of them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
you don't have a lot there's not a lot of submarine comics out there to compare it
right.
to.
Yeah, yeah, but you combine both of them, and I was hooked because I love that stuff. Like Alien is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like I'll watch
Yeah.
Alien all the time, and I do like that dreadful feeling of like the unknown.
Yeah. And yeah, we got a
Mm.
mashup. I mean, it has a lot of vibes of Alien, right?
Mhm.
This invading thing enters your confined ship that you can't
Yeah.
get out of. That's totally going to feel alien.
Mhm.
I tried to get a little bit of Star Trek in there with like the crew of like people who come together,
I was gonna mention
who,
that.
yeah, who
Yeah.
maybe have like different backgrounds and stuff. Like the kind of the world that this is set in, this world has been destroyed environmentally,
Mhm.
and so they have to stay in the sub. The air is, I believe, is toxic. There's viruses and pollutants and stuff that have been released into the world, and so their only safe place is this sub. So it's kind of like, the same as being in space, right? You can't just open the door and leave.
Yeah.
You're kind of stuck there. So we kind of get that pressure cooker of being in a confined space, plus not being able to leave, plus monster equals hopefully cool comic.
Right. I mean, like it's already dreadful with that descriptor of like they're in. I think when we pick up the story, they've been in that sub for 10 years already.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So that in and of itself is horrifying. Like I always thought about that. Like in high school, they at the in senior year, like all the armed forces recruiters come to talk to the kids.
yeah.
Honestly, the only thing I wanted to do was I wanted to join the Air Force, and they were like, "Sorry, buddy, your vision sucks. Why don't you try it? Why don't you do the Navy?
Yeah,
You'll be around jets and stuff." Ooh, I
yeah.
think my camera kind of went a little wonky there.
Oh,
Um, there we go. I'm back. So I remember the guy was like, "Oh, apply for the Navy. Like you'll be if you can get on an aircraft carrier and you'll be around jets." I'm like,
yeah.
"Yeah, but I could also be on a submarine, and that's not something I want."
Right, right. And like a nuclear subs can stay under like nearly
Mhm.
indefinitely. They can generate their own oxygen and all this stuff, and
Yeah.
only have to, or they have to surface every once in a while to like blow out some stuff.
Mhm.
Tim did a bunch of research. I hate research, so he's like, "Trust me, they can do this." I'm like, "Cool, I believe you." Uh, but yeah, like the and this is set slightly in the future, so we can exaggerate that a
Yeah.
little bit. But yeah, they can stay under fairly indefinitely, and
Mhm.
and if the world goes to crap, that's one of the only places you could maybe survive.
Yeah.
So and we kind of don't say it explicitly, but like there's people that they picked up along the way.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like that Star Trek Voyager where you get this crew of like, hey, there's military, naval people,
Yeah.
plus hey, there's this guy who has a bunch of contraband stuff, and there's like this
Mhm.
girl they picked up along the way. And so there's the crew's a little bit of this mix,
Yeah.
and there's tension within the crew like there would be after so long underneath
Mhm.
there. The captain is there with his brother, and they're twins, and so they have kind of like a conflicting way of going about their
Mhm.
business and what they think is the appropriate thing for the ship to do. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of family conflict, like we like to have, Tim and I like to have in our stories, a lot of family aspects,
Mhm.
a lot of found family, but actual family as well. And yeah.
Now, where does that come from? Because I've noticed that's almost like the thread in all your books,
Yeah.
like Denizen,
Yeah.
for
It,
example,
it's
a family book, Morning
right.
Star, even End After End
Yeah. Family
that has
book.
that found family vibe to it.
Right. Resonant
Hmm.
was all family being
Yeah.
separated. Yeah. It once you figure out the stuff that you're messed up about,
Okay.
that's gonna make its way into your writing anyways, you just lean into it. So me and Tim both
Yeah.
have like family issues, like things that we would like,
Hmm.
our families to be different. And we both believe strongly in found family. And, you pick kind of the people that you want to have them be a part of your life. And
Yeah.
just because someone's blood doesn't mean they necessarily need to be in your life. So we have a lot of those similar experiences with our family, with our parents, our siblings, and things like that. So
Sure.
yeah, we both have those issues, and so there's always going to be like a brother or like a
Yeah.
parent or something going on in there. Yeah,
I think a lot of folks, myself included, have those issues too with certain, like, for me at least, it's like a lot of extended family, where it's like, yeesh. But, like
yeah,
that's such a very interesting thing that you guys both are on the same page about, that you can both explore and write about in a very different way in each time.
right. Yeah, you don't want to, those things are going to come in, but you're going to explore
Mhm.
different aspects of family or different aspects of relationship. It's an issue that you have, so we kind of again we lean into that, and what are we going to explore in this one?
Yeah.
Like in Denizen, a lot of that was stolen straight from Tim's life.
Okay.
His both of his parents-in-law were going through different types of dementia at the
Hmm.
same time.
Oh, wow.
And when you really have someone in the throes of Alzheimer's or dementia, they can seem like they're a totally different person or
Yeah.
possessed. Yeah, so yeah, both of his parents were suffering from some form of dementia. So a lot
Hmm.
of things that um Helene, the main character in one of the main characters in Denizen, that she actually did in that book were things
Hmm.
that his parents-in-law were actually doing in real life. And,
Yeah.
just, they can really just seem like totally different people. So, if 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 you can use comic books as your therapy, I mean, you're kind of saving some money there on
Oh, yeah.
on
Yeah.
seeing a mental
Hmm.
health specialist. So that's where I started. My very first comic ever
Hmm.
was right after I got a divorce, and I'm like, well, I need to get some emotion out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
let me write a comic book. I don't know why I decided to do that, but it helped. So
Yeah, I think
yeah.
the creative process helps with any issues that you may have ticking around up there. That's really, like I remember, like my grandmother, she had dementia and eventually, she passed away. But with her case, it was very interesting. It was very different because she did a lot of staring.
Mm.
It wasn't so much like she didn't know where she, like, on occasion, but there
Yeah.
was a lot of like just kind of looking out the window. And my wife's grandmother, I remember, before she passed away, she had dementia too. And there was a weird thing where like I was the only person she'd remember. So
Wow.
like like if we went to a family thing, she'd be like, "Oh, hi, Rich," and I'd be like, "What's up?" And
Yeah.
then like everybody else would be like, "Why does she remember you?" I don't know. But you
Yeah,
never know.
it's
You never know.
yeah, the brain is a weird thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, we get to just
Hmm.
explore that kind of like end after end. I think we probably had talked about that. It was like came from this feeling of like powerlessness during like the pandemic
Hmm.
and during some of the civil unrest and
Yeah.
things like that. It's like, man, I don't have any control over this world. And so the main character Walt became this guy who's just fallen into this other world and has
Yeah.
no agency and no control and no skills and no ability to control what's happening. So yeah, I mean, I that's just how Tim and I both think when we want to write comics. We want to write
Hmm.
something that means something, hopefully to us
Right.
first, and then ideally other people connect to that too. And I think if we make it like personal and real, and we really put
Hmm.
enough of ourselves and emotion into the books, then people have a better chance to connect with it.
I think so too, and I think people would not only have a better chance to connect with it, but for example, I've recommended End After End to a lot of people. So you want
Nice.
that kind of thing where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I connected with this book, this person connected with that book, then it's the exchange of like, hey, I think you'd really like this. And I
Yeah.
also like that the way that you guys work very self-contained. I think End After End was 8 issues, right?
It was a 10 issue series. The last issue
Okay.
was double size, so
Okay.
it ended up only being 9 physical
9. Okay.
issues, but it was 10 chapters. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Denizen was 4, Morningstar was 5.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Denizen was 4 30-page issues.
Okay.
So that ends up being like 6.5 or something like that. And
Yeah.
then Morningstar is 5, Crushed Up is 5,
Mhm.
and yet to be announced other Mad Cave series is
Oh,
going to be
awesome.
5. Yeah.
Do you prefer to work in that way where it's like, listen, this is our finite story for now?
It's I'm from the time, and I think a lot of people are from the time of the 90s
Mhm.
where stories just kept on going.
Yeah.
And I don't really remember there being arcs and stuff and like these discrete beginning and endings that we have now in comics.
Mhm.
Um Tim really likes to have an end. He likes the ending
Okay.
of things. So that, yeah, he's really into that. I could maybe go a little bit longer.
Mhm.
I would like to have, like Resonant was a 10 issue series. If the material like demands it, I
Mhm.
would really like to be able to have the freedom in indie comics to go 10 issues,
Yeah.
or 15 or 20. It's pretty rare to see that now in indie comics, other than stuff at like Image, where people can kind of do their own thing and they're taking their own risk and paying their own money to, basically finance the comic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and or they have big enough name that they get enough sales on a monthly basis to cover the cost of the comic
Mhm.
book. For most of us indie people, it's the first issue that hopefully sells enough that pays for the next four.
Right. 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 Right.
and so that's why you don't see a lot of 10 issue series anymore, or
Yeah.
20 issue series. You see a lot of 3, 4, and 5 now. Is kind of the sweet spot for
Mhm.
indies, because it mitigates their risk a little bit. They don't
Yeah.
have to lose money on the back end, and they can keep putting out series. So um, I think as long as you have the story that fits, that's fine. If I know I'm developing a 5 issue series,
Yeah.
then it's going to be 5 issues. If I know I'm doing a 160-page graphic novel, it's going to be 160 pages of material. So
Mhm.
you just wanted to have enough like meat on the bone to really do that. Like Morningstar was really tight and self-contained.
Yeah.
Like I don't think we would have gone 6 issues on that. It would have been a stretch. And then you can tell, I
Mhm.
think, when series are stretching.
Oh
Everybody's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
well,
100%.
nothing happened in this episode or this issue, or you just ended back at the same place you started. And so as long as you have the material can do it, like Resonant, I think could have gone on 20-25 issues. I had
Mhm.
more material for that. Morningstar couldn't have. Denizen was very tight and self-contained. Um, there's some things that we like to try to set up for like a second volume
Mhm.
in case it's really popular. You never want to like shut the door on yourself.
Yeah.
So there would be, a Morningstar 2 if it got demanded by the public, if enough people bought it, or
Mhm.
like a Crush Depth, volume 2. I think that's a smarter way to go, is have a
Yeah.
story that ends, but also you have a little escape hatch where you can go and do a whole another story set in that world.
Yeah. Like a little just in case. Like,
Yeah, I think you see that with that
Mhm.
Enfield gang massacre, and like all the stuff happens in that same world.
Yeah.
Um, and or you get like a new name of like the series, and they call it a book 2 or whatever, and they
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
restart with a new number 1. I think if you can restart with a new number 1, that lets people know that this is a good jumping on point, and you can start the series from here.
Yeah. Where it's like I think the only thing that pops into my head now is I think Kirkman's bringing the one of the Invincible characters back
Battle Beast.
Battle Beast. Yeah, he's doing Battle
Yeah.
Beast like an Invincible book
I'm
starting
I'm
from number
wearing
one.
my Voltrum Empire
Oh, I
shirt
was wondering
tonight.
what it was. That's cool. Yeah, so like that just popped in my head where it's like Battle Beast
Yeah.
number one in the world of Invincible. We're like,
Right.
oh, that's cool. You know, like there's a
Yeah.
little more there. I've found myself unfortunately dropping books recently because I'm like, this isn't going anywhere. You know,
Right.
like you're saying, like
Right.
it's sometimes stuff is a little too stretched out for my liking, and
Yeah.
I guess my
Or
pocket too. You know.
yeah, or it feels like I'm reading something right now. I'm not going to say what it is.
Hmm.
I'm reading something right now that really feels like very little happens in each issue, and they're writing for the trade.
Okay.
And it's like I can see this being a chapter, but I just paid $4, $5 for this, and I want to
Right.
have my money's worth. I want to have, a good chunk of the story, like a good episode of
Hmm.
television that has something that happened important in the issue,
Yeah.
and then a cliffhanger at the end, and then boom, you need that next issue. And
Yeah.
so
I think like you nailed it. And also I'm of the mind, or I don't know if you collect any of the Jeff Lemire stuff.
I've really liked like Tenement
Yeah.
and the Thousand Black Feathers or something. Like his horror stuff has been spectacular lately.
It's been fantastic. So like I'll
Yeah.
do single issues when it comes to that. Like Tenement I loved. I couldn't wait.
Oh my God,
Loved.
that was so creepy and weird.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Great single issue book, right? Like can't
right.
wait to read the next one. But for Black Hammer, I always wait for the trades.
Yeah.
You know, like with that, like I never get like them single issues, and if I do, I'll just put them away and I'll just get the trade as soon as it happens. You know,
Yeah,
I think because it lends itself to that universe. You know, so like it depends on the book
for
or
sure.
whatever. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
good.
And I'm hoping like, yeah. And I think hopefully like with Crush Step, it's tight
Mhm.
enough that each issue is going to give you a good chunk, move it forward, and have a good like cliffhanger at the
Yeah,
end. Um, yeah, we do some creepy stuff in there, so it's fun.
I'm excited. I really can't wait for it, and
Yeah,
it's interesting. Good.
it's totally different than anything I would normally like. I
Hmm.
feel like I would normally. This is not where my brain normally goes because it's so like the thing was so scary to me as a child. I
Hmm.
watched it I think when I was 12 or something
Okay.
like that, and I rewatched it last year, and that was the second time I've seen it because it
Oh wow.
horrified me so much that I did not watch it for like 40 years. So I'm like there's like so like body horror stuff is so scary to me.
Yeah.
And stuff in the water is so scary to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So like I have like super double fear of both of those things.
Mhm.
And we're like, yeah, let's stick this in a book together. Yeah, this is terrifying. I hate this.
Yeah, listen, I'm in the same boat you are where listen, I love going I don't like going to a New York beach. I like going to like a Miami or Florida beach. It's
Yeah.
like for some reason, but I'm always like, man, I don't want to be way out there at all. Like I would never
There's
like
oh,
I've never been on a cruise. I would never go on a cruise. The thought
yeah.
of being on on a boat the size of a skyscraper in the middle of the ocean with 10,000 people does not do it for me.
I'm just we think we know what's in the ocean. You don't know what's in the ocean.
No.
There's like it's less explored than the moon, they say, or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
like, it's horrifying, and they're always like, "Oh, look at this brand new thing we found." They don't know where eels reproduce.
Right.
They right? That's like the big thing on TikTok. All the eel people or all
Mhm.
the nature people like that, or they don't really know how many giant squid there are
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they count giant squid and they'd count sperm whales, and sperm
Right.
whales eat giant squid. And there's too many sperm whales in the ocean that we know
Hmm.
of for the number of giant squid that we can count. So that
Yeah.
means there's a ton more like giant squid than we think because the sperm whales are alive. And
Right.
so, like, get out of the freaking ocean. It's too scary.
Or dive deeper. I always thought that was like such an interesting thing where it's like we only know we only know up into a certain depth.
Right.
You know, other than that, it's like impossible to get to at this point in
Yeah.
technology, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, and
And,
I
and,
think
er- and every time we go down there, they're like, oh, this is something new. They have so many
mm,
species down there that they don't even have names for yet because they haven't seen enough of them or they don't know enough about them.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and
Oh, cool.
they have a deep sea exhibit, and
Hmm.
it's like, oh my God, this is horrifying.
Yeah, it's all terrifying stuff. All the
Yeah.
bioluminescent
Yeah.
creatures with big teeth.
Yeah.
You know, those are the
Giant
those are the
giant
real
ass
aliens.
crabs. The crabs
Yeah,
were as big as me. I'm like, that's not real. That's fake. That's like a puppet you put in there.
yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah,
But no, it's real.
it's real.
Which is really nuts. Let's go back to Crush Depth again. So you mentioned that you wanted to throw a little Star Trek in there, and I picked that up. The dialogue is very snappy and very Trek-like for a
Yes.
lot of those couple issues, which I really enjoy because I'm a big Trek guy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I want it to be this familiarity, that people have that have been living together for a
Mhm.
long time, and they have their little cliques and the people they get along with and inside
Mhm.
jokes and stuff like that. It's like it's a very lived in, hopefully Trek like
Yeah.
crew, and I think um uh one of the problems, I think, not problems, but things that happen with like body horrors,
Mhm.
like, or like aliens, most of these people are going to die, right? This is
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and you want to have some kind of emotional impact, so you try to have the reader get a connection with some of these characters pretty quickly,
Mhm.
and hopefully that interaction between the characters goes, oh, these people really do like each other. So when people start dropping off or turning into monsters, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that really must suck for them because they really like that person. So we always want to have emotional stakes. It's kind of the through line of all of our comics.
Mhm.
Mine before and with Tim, and his before and with me. Again, going back to those emotional stakes and having people connect with the material. You really do want to have that kind of like emotional impact when a character, something happens to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm a huge Trek. I mean, I think I can't decide if I'm more Star Trek or Star Wars, and a
Mhm.
lot of times I come out on the Trek side just because it was so omnipresent in my childhood. Like, it
Okay.
was the only show that we were allowed to watch during dinner, and it was
Okay.
my dad's favorite show. I went and saw Star Trek the motion picture, I think, in the drive-in.
Oh
I,
wow.
I was a kid. I think I fell asleep before they even got to the big ship part.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a very slow movie
Oh
for the
yeah. Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It was like, that was normal. That was like they're trying to do their 2001 Space
Mhm.
Odyssey kind of style. But yeah, Wrath of Khan is one of my favorite movies for my entire life. And, I've been totally getting into Strange New World, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And Lower Decks is amazing. Probably probably my favorite Trek show right
Mhm.
now. Um, so yeah, I'm a big Trek nerd, and
Yeah.
I always liked that the fighting was secondary. It's cool to have the ship battles and stuff, but it was usually outthinking them that won
Right.
the day. And as a little, nerdy kid growing up, it was like it was cool that the nerds won all the time on that show.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Hey, listen, I'm in the same boat you are. I love Star Trek. I'm a lifelong Star Trek guy. I'm also a lifelong Star Wars guy, but I think the only and I love both of them.
Yeah,
I think the and nothing none not, one is not better than the other, right?
right.
But I do have a thing where like I like to tell people I I do talk about Star Wars every day at some point.
Yeah,
There is some point in my day where a something Star Wars is mentioned, talked about, or referenced.
yeah,
And I think that's inescapable. And but I also think that mars my perception of everything Star Wars,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I can't like I was telling my buddy a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I cannot criticize these movies because I love them so much. And I
right.
love the extras so much. Sure. Who cares if it was a piece of shit? It's Star
Yeah,
Wars.
right, right, right.
Mm,
And I think with me, Star Trek did so much more than just entertain me.
yeah,
It gave me like my ideals in life.
for sure. Yeah.
It's like, my parents are ultra conservative.
Mhm.
I'm like, you raised me on a communist show. Why why would you think I would turn out to be as conservative as you
Mhm.
guys? All
Yeah.
I watched was like a world where everyone was nice to each other. They gave what they could, and
Hmm.
there was no capitalism
Right. There's
at
no
all.
money.
And if there ever was, they were the bad guys. It's
Right.
like you raised me on like the show that had the first interracial kiss on television,
Hmm.
and you don't expect me to be progressive. So yeah,
That's kind of funny. Yeah.
I don't think a Star Wars. I wanted to be a Jedi. I wanted to be Han Solo.
Yeah.
There was no one really on Star Trek that I wanted to be, but I wanted to live in that world much more than I wanted to live in the Star Wars world.
Yeah, yeah. It's all like a kinder, gentler world too.
Yes,
I think
yes,
that was like the big difference is Star Trek always had that lesson,
yeah,
regardless of what it was, it always had that like lesson. Like TNG does it for me like big time. I've watched all the TNGs like of numerous times.
yeah.
And I think that show for me definitely it hammers home those moral lessons like more than any other Trek, I think.
Right, right.
Again,
Totally.
they kind of do it in like a big way, especially
Yeah,
with like you get like a Picard speech or like a Riker speech or something like that towards the
yeah,
end, and you're like, oh
yeah.
yeah, that's good stuff. Why doesn't everybody watch this and pay attention and be nice to each
Right,
other?
right.
You know?
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to have a nice little crew on the
Mhm.
crush on the Absolution, the crush
Yeah.
step ship, and have that kind of like it found family, and so yeah, it was fun to flex those Trek muscles. Because a lot of what I have a hard time juggling big casts of characters,
Hmm.
so usually if you look at my books, there's 2 to 3 main characters and that's about it,
Hmm.
and that's about what my brain can handle now. Maybe later on I could get a team book or something like
Yeah.
that, but um for me, I really like to have people really 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 care about the main characters, and so I spend most of my energy on developing those. um, so yeah, this is the first time I really got to put a crew together. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put a crew together, and there's gonna be like a Russian guy, and there's gonna be like uh, this a couple of white dudes, and like the ladies, and like
Yeah.
you kind of like get all the colors of the world together, and like let's make a cast.
That's fantastic. Very Star Trek. Very fantastic.
Yes,
Crush Depth is coming out in March, right?
yes.
Okay.
Uh, FOC is February 24th. So
Okay.
if you want to order it, you got to order it before February 24th. And if you don't know how comics work, I don't know why you'd be watching this show, but if you don't know how
Hmm.
comics work, initial orders are what sets your print run basically.
Yeah.
So whatever people get in before FOC on the 24th is how many, plus or minus some, is
Hmm.
how many Mad Cave is going to print. Um, so if you even think you might like it, put it on your pull list.
Should order it.
Pre-order the first issue. It's like $4, $5. Take a chance on some indie comics, and
Hmm.
every single order of an indie comic makes a big difference.
Absolutely. I do hope indie comics are the spine of the comics industry. And in the last few years, you've seen the big two scoop up a lot of indie guys who were like
Right.
real indie guys, and then all of a sudden they're on these big books. People are watching. I think that's the thing that fans don't really realize about
Yeah.
comics is, you know, yes, you have your indie darlings, but it's beneficial for everybody once those indie guys get picked up by a big two, because not only are they making more money, it's bringing eyes on the stuff that they made before, and they'll end up making more money again.
Yeah, and you're getting super exciting fresh voices
Yeah.
on those characters that you love. You get, David Pepose starting in like he had a Kickstarter, and
Hmm.
then went to a Mad Cave, was it I think it was a Mad Cave book, right?
Yeah.
Nottingham. Yeah. I might be getting my Davids mixed up. That might be David Hazan.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's I know what year, because I think he did
he did Scouts
yeah, yes,
Honor,
Scout's
and
Honor.
I don't know who printed that, so I take that back. That wasn't Mad Cave, but again, you get
Hmm.
guys like Pepos coming up and then doing a Punisher book, and then
Yeah.
you get like David Booher starting at Vault and then making his way up
Yeah.
to like Kanto and like other big series, and this is indie comics is where we get to like you get to find new talent. You can take
Hmm.
risk on people who haven't done anything before. And indie comics dies, you're going to get some really boring big two books,
Oh,
because
forget it. Yeah.
yeah, no one's going to hand the keys to Batman to someone who hasn't proven themselves. And if there's not a proving ground, what are you going to get? Just other
Hmm.
people that have written other books before, that are all at the same level. So yeah, I not just because I write indie comics, but
Hmm.
that's what I grew up on. I grew up in the '90s explosion. My first
Yeah.
comic was TMNT, and then I bought everything that Image put out,
Oh yeah.
and that was like that was my formative years. And so I didn't really grow up on big two books as much as I grew up on indie weird books.
Mhm.
And so I still love indie weird books.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, let's keep that going as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. When I was a kid, I pseudo inherited my older brother's comic book collection, and he's 12 years my senior. So a lot of the
Yeah,
books that I grew up with were big two, but then a lot of funky indie books, a lot of like Judge Dredd, like humanoids type
yeah,
stuff, like a lot of British stuff. So it was very cool, and that kind of peppered my comic book intellect. When I was a teenager, I would just buy everything, like indie
yeah,
books. I remember like I think I was in sixth grade when Image came out, when Image dropped,
yeah.
and it was like it was the coolest thing on the planet. And you know what? It still is. Like looking back at that first like Youngblood, Spawn,
Right.
um,
Wildcats,
Wildcats.
Wet
Everybody went nuts for
Works. Yeah,
Wetworks. Um, I feel like there's like Gen 13. There was like another couple of
Pit,
like Pit.
Pit, Supreme.
Hmm.
Yeah, Death Blow.
Yeah,
Right, that was
yeah,
Jim
yeah.
Lee's. Yeah. No, and I, and I'm slightly before that when there was companies like Comico
Oh yeah,
and there was
yeah,
Continuity Comics, and I bought everything from Continuity Comics.
yeah.
They're all Neil Adams stuff, and I still remember reading Elementals
Hmm.
from Comico, and there was just you could have these smaller companies because
Hmm.
so many people bought comics back in the day that you could just have these weird small companies that would pop up and put in like a Bucky O'Hare book or
Yeah.
all the TMNT spin-offs like the biker rats from Mars or whatever,
Oh
biker
yeah.
mice from Mars. It was just there was weird
Hmm.
comics, and like you gotta develop that kind of weirdness. And I think Mad Cave for me has been the place lately because you get kind of normal books.
Yeah.
Like I call most of my books fairly normal, and then you get something like Spectrum,
Yeah.
which is like so weird and so different and so unique. And I think it, like, again, speaks to Mark London and his like varied taste in
Yeah.
comics, right? You're talking to him, that dude's got taste all over the place.
Oh yeah.
And so if it's a good comic, he's not going to be too picky about like does it match a certain mold that they're
Right.
going for. Um, so yeah, I love indie comics, and I want indie comics to survive. And it's a scary time losing Diamond, and with
Yeah.
looming like paper tariffs and the price of shipping going up, and like
Hmm.
it's kind of a scary time for comics and comic creators. And there's a little bit of fear running through the comic community right now on the creative end. So if you're at all a fan of comics, support those indies, buy those first and second issues, and like give us a little love because in 20-30 years Batman and Superman and Spider-Man are still going to be there. But you may not have indie publishers there anymore. You
Yeah.
may
Yeah.
just have big two. So the more that we can support them now through like this tough time, the better.
Very well said. I don't think comics are going to go anywhere. I think people had that fear during the pandemic as well, where all of a sudden it was like it just stopped.
Yeah,
And then, like so many folks were going nuts. I remember going to like my local comic shop, and I think a lot of shops across the country did the same thing where like they'd have one guy working, and then you kind of email them a list or whatever you want, and then they'll
yeah,
come to your car
yeah.
wrapped
Put
up,
it out, put it
you know.
outside the door, and you go and pick it
Yeah,
up.
so you
Yeah,
get it because they were still getting orders for stuff, but not necessarily monthly books.
yeah, yeah,
And I think like the consensus was like people were freaking out because like I'd go to my local comic shop and then like I'm buddy with the guy who runs it, and he's like, "Yo, we're getting inundated with phone calls all day, and
yeah,
we're just selling tons of shit because people think it's like when you go to the supermarket and you're the guy that doesn't know there's a blizzard,
yeah.
but then you see everybody going
All
crazy
the
and like
all the toilet paper and
yeah,
water's gone.
throwing toilet paper in their thing, going nuts. Like I gotta order like 10 pounds of
Yeah.
ham. Like
Yeah, I go to at least a couple of shops in Sacramento. I have pull lists at two different shops, and so I
Mhm.
bought, gift certificates for myself. I'd buy 100 $150 gift certificates at both places
Yeah.
just so they had money coming in, and I was like, when I spent that money, I was like, hey, do you want me to buy another one? And my shop owner's like, hey, I'm good, man. We're selling so much stuff, it's ridiculous. So
Yeah.
because one of the shops sells tabletop games, and people were just desperate for something to
Oh
do,
yeah. Yeah.
to play with, like inside their house and stuff. And the other shop sells a lot of trades and stuff, and
Mhm.
he was just selling trades and shipping, everywhere. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I think there'll always be a love for comics and a want for comics, and I just worry about some of the smaller companies with these tight margins surviving, some of these price hikes and things like that. But yeah, I think comics is strong. Comics will be around, but it's kind of, you got to support
Mhm.
the kind of comics that you want to see on the shelves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go into a store and pay full price for an indie book.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's the thing, like I don't, because like I get a discount at my store, and but if I'm, let's say if I'm in Manhattan or something and I stop in Midtown or I stop in Forbidden Planet, like I'll always plunk down money for
yeah.
like an indie trade.
I don't think every town I go to, whenever I go to a town, I find the comic shop and I go into it,
Yeah.
and if I'm visiting a friend in LA, we'll hit a couple of shops, and I will buy something from every single shop I go
Oh
to.
yeah.
Doesn't matter. And I think that yeah, it's important, especially those indie dollars go a lot further. And even, a lot of shops still don't know, or just don't order indies. It's
Yeah.
the big two put out so many books that they have to buy those books for
Hmm.
their customers, because they know they're going to sell. So especially if you go to a shop that doesn't carry like Vault, or doesn't carry
Right.
Mad Cave, or doesn't carry Antarctic Press,
Hmm.
find some of these weird little indie, uh like publishers, and see if they'll order a book, because if you like it, someone else in the shop's probably going to like it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And then that way, those publishers um get some press. And it's one of the most frustrating things about being a creator, is when you have a book that people are going to like, and they just don't know it exists.
Yeah.
And there's no like TV commercials for comics, that
Yeah.
each company puts ads for their own comics in
Hmm.
their comics. So if
Right.
you're not already buying their comics, you don't know their comics exist, and not many people go through previews and read everything and look at everything.
Yeah.
So if you are aware of an indie title, like Rich with End After End, man, I really, really appreciate you spreading the word. Like,
Oh,
every
hey.
single sale of that makes a huge, huge difference to me,
Hmm.
I just want people to read the books. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't, we were talking before I come on. I don't, this isn't making me money, uh, or I'm not. This is not how I live. The reason I live
Yeah.
my life, to like make money on comics. I just want people to read the stuff I wrote, and I want it hopefully to
Hmm.
impact you and stick with you, and and maybe broaden your perspective, or change something about you. This is, I think, writing, arts, anything creative, that's what every creative person wants, is to really have a way to touch people that you don't have any other way to interact with. So if you read something that I wrote and it touched you, made you think, made you emotional, made you happy, whatever, that's amazing. That's magic, and I can do that across distance, across time, as long as that stuff exists. So, if you love a comic, spread that word, because it is way more powerful for your friend who knows you to say, hey, you should check out this comic, than me tweeting about it, or posting on BlueSky or something like that. If someone says to you, hey, I love this comic, you should check it out, I definitely take all my friends' recommendations, and I check out every book they probably ever recommended to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I want to find cool stuff too. I just want to read cool stuff. I always feel like I'm not reading the coolest thing. And then everyone's like, "Oh, did you read that issue of like Uncanny X-Men?" I'm like, "No, I must have missed that one. What
Yeah. Yeah.
happened?" I always feel like I'm missing out because I don't buy every single comic.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I well said, by the way. Well said. I think, like indie comics are the backbone, but also like there's that magic there, like you said, where you're writing something and then somebody in Siberia might stumble on it
Right.
and get very emotional about it, you know?
Yeah. I sorry to interrupt, but
No.
just I started writing like I said when I went through a divorce, and then I wrote a second issue of the same series, and it was about like it was just a relationship drama. And so I had a four issue series that was a relationship drama. The second issue was about the wife going through cancer
Mhm.
and how that affected the couple and stuff like that. And I had someone show up at a convention here in Sacramento, and he's like, I bought this last year. I'm like, and he seemed kind of mad about it. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
okay. He's like, you wrote my life. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you wrote my life in here. I'm like, how did you do that? I'm like, it's just the realest thing I could write. He's like, this was exactly what I went through and
Wow.
everything. And I was like, yeah, that was like, I'll remember that for my entire life. And hopefully like he'll remember that for his whole life. And here's this experience that for someone I don't know and I'll
Mhm.
never see again, that I impacted his life and he impacted mine. And I don't know. That's why you create things. I don't know. There's this. I don't know where it comes from, but there's this drive that I think people who want to create something have, that they want to get out there and affect other people emotionally. That's why
Yeah.
you write a sad song or a happy song, or make a you know an emotional play, or write a comic book.
Yeah. I think it's very much giving back to the world too.
Right. Yeah, you want to
Mm.
add something of yourself to it, and I think for me, I want to be remembered. I don't have kids, so this is like my legacy is
Mhm.
hopefully my I'm picking a terrible legacy. Comics, the most disposable type of media we have.
Mhm.
But hopefully the trades live forever, and digitally live forever. So, or until, AI takes over and revolts against humanity. But still, until that happens, my comics will live on, and you guys can check them out.
No, absolutely. I got a quote before we wrap it up.
Yeah,
Were you and Tim at New York Comic Con last year?
I was at New York Comic Con last year.
Okay.
Yeah. Tim
I
was not. We were at Emerald City together.
okay.
Yeah. I
I
was at the
feel
eBay booth.
for New York Comic Con or for
Yeah.
Emerald City.
For New York Comic Con.
I feel like I saw you
Yeah.
and was like, that could be him. I don't want to look like a douche, and you know what I mean? Because like,
Just go DB, and there's not that many of me, so
yeah, as I remember, I
um
was like, I think that's him. I think that's DB. Fuck, there's too many guys that have beards and glasses.
right, right. I am a very nondescript white dude. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You can throw a stick and hit 20 of us at
yeah,
New York Comic
exactly.
Con.
Like short hair, beard, and glasses. Like,
I'll
whoa,
be I'll be at San Diego and New York again this year. I help
awesome.
my friend out at eBay, but I'll hopefully probably be doing at least one signing at Mad Cave. I did a signing for
Oh, awesome.
Morningstar at Mad Cave at New York Comic Con, and Emerald City as well. So hopefully this year I'll be doing some Crush Step signings at San Diego
Very cool.
and New York, if Mad Cave will have me at their booth.
I'm sure they
And
will.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure they will. Mark's a sweet guy. He's not going to be like, no, I don't want
he
you anywhere
is.
near my booth.
Yeah, get the hell out of here. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's really nice to have a champion like him, because he
Mhm.
he tells me how much he likes my writing all the time, and
Mhm.
that's like, you never get tired of hearing nice things about
Yeah,
yourself.
it's good
So
stuff.
yeah, so I'll take it, and if Mad Cave will keep having us, we're gonna hopefully keep doing books for them.
Awesome.
They just been so great to work with. I want to work with every company at some
Right.
point.
Yeah.
I don't want to limit myself, but it's nice to have a place that, is open to hear what we have to pitch.
Mhm.
That's for people, who want to get into comics, and are working in the indie scene and self-published scene and Kickstarter scene. That's what everybody wants. They just
Yeah.
want someone to give them a chance to look at their stuff, and if they like it, cool. If they don't, fine. But it really feels like you don't have many open doors, as an indie creator. So I think we're really, really, really lucky that we do have a bit of an open door for me and Tim at a couple of places that we have good relationships with. You know, he works for Vault, and we know editors at other companies now, and Mad Cave. So yeah, we got tons of stories to tell. We're not going to run out of stories. We just need places to tell them. So
See, that's what I love to hear as a fan. Like you guys got a lot of stuff cooking, and I want to see more. I want to read more. I want to be able to pick up those books and recommend those books.
yeah, every time we think, oh
Mhm.
man, we're running out of stuff to do, we'll sit
Mhm.
down for one morning and plot out an entire series like we did a couple of weeks
It's
ago.
awesome. Mhm. That's awesome.
We take an idea and then we're like, let's just hammer this thing out. And you know, Tim is he's I call him the machine gun of ideas because
Mhm.
you just light him up and he just fires stuff at you, and you get to sit there and go dodge, 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 I'll take that one, dodge, 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 I'll take that one.
Yeah.
And then you know, we each have kind of like the things that we like to work on and our strengths. And I, you know, I really like to work on character and dialogue and you know, emotional impact, and he's great at adding twists and turns into the plot and
Mhm.
coming up with the big picture and what would happen the next series and the next series and the next series. Sometimes I need to shut his brain down because it just goes too fast.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm really good at just taking one step at a time, looking directly, what's the next
Mhm.
line that I have to write? What's the next line I have to write? And he's already 50 steps down the road. So we can we really have a good, easy working relationship, and it kind of makes us both faster at what we do. And it's kind of like having a harness on you when you're running across a tightrope, right? You don't have to be
Mhm.
quite as careful if you know you can't really fall. And so when you have someone else you're working with all the time, you really feel like you have someone helping hold you up. And so I can really take risks and kind of run ahead, and at some point he'll pull me back and go, no, you went the wrong direction, you got to go this way. And I'm like, cool,
Mhm.
let me run that way for a little while. So it's, I don't know, it's I think a lot of people go, how do you co-write with someone? I'm like, it's literally the easiest, funnest way to write.
Yeah, especially if you get along with your collaborator.
Yeah, and it's you know, and I think everyone's had like like a jam session when you're like even just talking about like,
Mhm.
oh man, what if, you know, Thor was a mouse instead of a rabbit or something like that or
Yeah,
whatever. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
you start, and then wouldn't it be cool if this happened? Then wouldn't it be cool if that
Mhm.
happened? And wouldn't it be cool if that happened? Just imagine you're doing that all the time with your stories. You know, it's like
Yeah.
always having someone to jam with who's on the same page, same wavelength, what's the same things out of the comics that you write, and likes the same kind of stories. I just got to get them a little bit more off of horror, and I'm trying to steer them into comedy a little bit more.
Okay. Mm.
Um, I kind of can't take some of the jokey stuff out, but like there's not much joking in Crush Depth, but
Yeah.
the one after Crush Depth is really fun, and uh, it's going to be a sci-fi story. I'm giving spoilers because Mark came on here and gave spoilers, and so he can't get mad at me for giving spoilers for our
Mhm.
next Mad Cave series. So it's a sci-fi. There's tons of fun characters. It's really the kind of story I love. I've always wanted to tell. It's our Star Wars type, you know, story.
Awesome.
So it's just like villains that are over the top, melodramatic, and you know, a misfit ragtag team of heroes. So it's really really fun. I'm super excited for that one too. So we got some good stuff coming out.
I'm pumped for that. Listen, just by that little teaser right there, like I'm excited to read that, man. Um, all right, let's wrap it up. DB, what do you want to leave everybody with? I know Crush Depth is coming out in March. You said
Yep.
final order cutoff is
224, February 24th.
okay.
Please pre-order, give it a chance, buy one issue. If you don't like it, you can find me online and cuss me out. That's fine. I don't care.
But you're not getting your
Uh,
money back.
you're not getting your money back. I know money back
Yeah.
guarantees. But you can use it to swat flies. You can use it to start a fire. The comics have multiple uses past just
Hmm.
reading them. Um, but yeah, check out End After End. If you go to my Blue Sky account, the first issue of End After End is free to read. It's my pinned post. So you just find me at DB Andry, and read the first issue of End After End for free. And then if you like it, the trades are available, both of them now. You can get any of my books, Resonant, Denizen, on the Vault site or Amazon or bookshop.org or any of your comic shops, whatever you get the best price on. Amazon seems to have my stuff on sale all the time, probably because nobody buys it.
Mhm.
So feel free. I bought some of my books on Amazon because they were End After End. The first volume of End After End was $9
Oh, all right. There you go.
recently. And so I'm like, well, I can sell that at conventions for 15 or $10, or
For sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so I just bought a couple of my own books. So yeah,
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing
buy
wrong
my
with that.
buy my stuff. You'll probably like it. If not, then fine. But at least you tried it. Yeah, buy indie books. Buy indie books. Buy all indie books. Buy your big two. They'll be, I love my big two. A huge Tom King fan. Loving his Wonder
Mhm.
Woman. But yeah, buy indie books. FML is great. Kelly Sue's book, and Sacrificers is really good. Rick Remender.
Oh, I'm a big fan of that. I'm a couple issues behind, but
Oh man,
it's yeah.
talk about a slow burn
Yeah.
that really cooked up. Man, this last issue, outstanding, insane. And,
Yeah.
and so again, that's kind of like I do like the times when you can really grow with a character and take your time with it. And
Yeah.
it's maybe someday indie comics will be popular enough that we could do that again. But until then, buy our 5-issue series and enjoy them.
I think so. I think indie comics are going to make a big comeback soon. Let's hope
I hope
so.
so, man. I hope
Yeah,
so. Yeah. And again, like we said, if you like something, tell your friends about it. Don't keep that stuff to yourself. Like, be an advocate for the comics that you read and the comics that you love. I guarantee you someone else is going to love it too.
for sure.
Nothing's for everybody, but there's something for everybody.
What a way to end it. DB, thank you so much for coming on again, man. I really appreciate it. And you know
Yeah,
what?
of
I'm going to
course.
have you on again towards the end of the year.
Let's do it.
But let's talk before that, man.
Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
always
Yeah.
a pleasure.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right. And there we have it. Listen, clearly DB loves comics. You love comics. I love comics. We all love comics. Comics bring us together. Comics are the Bill and Ted song that will unite the world, as seen in Bill and Ted 2, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I wish nothing but the most success to DB Andry. The dude's phenomenal. Those books are awesome. Go check out Crush Depth when it comes out. Make sure you get those orders in. This week, man, I really wanted to talk about some comics that came out in the last couple of weeks, but guess what? Diamond kind of shit the bed. Diamond Comics, the distributor, they filed for bankruptcy a couple of weeks ago. It's been like a whole thing. I don't really know the entire story. What I do know is that my local comic store, Best Comics International, out in New Hyde Park, I am loyal to that store. I've been loyal to that store since I was in my early 20s when I worked there. I'm not going to get comics from anywhere else unless it's a very hard pressing matter. But they have been not getting their books. They haven't been getting a lot of the books from Diamond like they should be. But from what I hear, from what my buddy who works there tells me, next week is going to be a gigantic week where all these past orders and back orders are going to come in. So I'm going to have to spread open that wallet a little bit and see what we got there and see what I take home and see what I don't. But listen, go read comics, go get some trades. I ended up picking up, usually I got like a decent stack. So today I ended up picking up like a couple of long boxes, some extra stuff that I wouldn't normally pick up. And I think that's the best thing about going to a comic shop on a Wednesday, when you don't expect a lot of stuff. I didn't really expect anything going in, especially because of all the Diamond stuff going on. So, I looked around a little bit, and that's kind of the best thing you can do in your hurried lives. Look around a little bit, go to a shop, see what they got, go through their stacks, lift something up. You may never know. You may not know what you find underneath. It might be something cool. You never know what's there. But next week, we're going to get the ball rolling again. I don't know who my guess is for next week. I might take next week off. I'm not 100% sure, but we're going to be rocking and rolling. Dave Pipos is going to come back on soon, probably towards the end of February. We got a lot more comic talk. If you want to check out some wrestling talk, Friday, 10:30 a.m., Matt Men Podcast, myself and Andrew Zarian. Also, Tuesdays at 10:30 a.m., Beyond the Belt for Fightful, two wrestling podcasts that I love doing with my buddy. And that's pretty much it. You can find me on Twitter, formerly Twitter. Now it's X. What a stupid fucking name. BTC Rich. You can find me on YouTube, BTC Rich X. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to bring you as many interviews as I can. I don't think I'm going to limit myself to 100 interviews like I wanted to do initially when I started the show a few years ago. I think I'm going to keep going. I'm getting good feedback, and I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you, and I love you, and I'll see you soon. Mwah.